So how to grow your hospice quickly? Really? This reminds me when I saw the topic, like picking up a golf magazine and saying this article that'll get rid of your slice, right? Reduce your golf game by 3 strokes, and I automatically just buy the magazine because I want the one thing that'll fix my golf game. Because sure as heck, if that thing could go straight, I know I could just destroy Mark Lewandowski on the course. But it seems to go hang right quite a bit. But we have this also get rich quick mentality as well. And so when we see, hey, how can we grow our hospice quickly? I think that can become the actual demise of our growth. The ability, wanting to grow quickly, I've seen take hospices down just as much as, and why is that? Okay, you can't manage it.
You have to build the infrastructure to take care of the people before you can actually.
Absolutely. What was that?
Unsustainable growth.
Unsustainable growth. And what would make growing quickly, what might fall off, what wills might fall off of that you've actually, most of you have probably seen? Quality. Okay, the wills come off of that. Staff. Yeah. So we can have the greatest marketing tactic, right? When the physician was up here, we were asking him, hey, how do we get in front of doctors? And he didn't have a lot of answers because there's really not a real quick fix, in my opinion, on really growing fast. But there is a lot of work that you can do that will then, it seems like you're growing really fast, but you've done a lot of prep work to get that growth that you're looking to achieve. And I think it's really important for your staffing model that your sustainable growth is in line, because if you do this in an office and you're staffing for it, and then your census drops and all of a sudden you have the staff and you have to deal with staff now, it could really hurt your organization and take you out. We have a hospice in our area, so if you combined all 8 of our offices and the total population of those 8 offices, we have a total of about 500,000 people in those 8 offices. We're very rural. And in the Boise area, there's 28 competitors in a 250,000 population section of Idaho. So it's brutal. If you take that per capita, I don't know of a more competitive market that I have personally heard of. Maybe Oklahoma City, I've heard, is really that, Tulsa. But usually those bigger markets, I mean, we're looking at, like Phoenix, Arizona is famous for having so many hospices, but they got, 4 million people in the metropolitan area that they can serve. And so we're really always having to push the edge and have something to be able to capture the patients into our hospice. There is nothing that you've heard in this conference, which has been great, by the way. We've come to this every year. We've a lot of familiar faces, and there's nothing that's been taught so far that isn't the exact answer that you need to grow your hospice as quick as healthy that you can be. What are some of the things that you've taken away so far that just specifically, not total takeaways, but specifically to grow your hospice?
I've got one. Okay, so the other day the takeaway with the physician was so many times your marketers, we have all of the Excels and all the different things that tell us what doctors are where and who they're medical directors of. But it was very interesting that he doesn't write specifically for a hospice. His hospice has to earn the business. And so I think a lot of times the marketers really shy away from, well, he's a medical director at XYZ, so all of the patients are going to go there. So.
Yeah. If you can be the second choice of all the physicians out there, I think you'd make a pretty good living. If you could just be the second choice. Hey, I know you use so-and-so. We just want to be your second option when that option's not available. That's a great way to approach physicians who are medical directors as well. Anybody else have a takeaway?
I I think for me, the biggest thing is getting rid of the negativity. That was really just day one, talking about, really turning the impossible into possible. So a lot of times, you kind of get sucked into the why we can't, from every single person in the organization. And so really, one of our goals as a leadership team is really getting back to our staff and changing that thought process to how they can and how we can make something work.
So we've had to do that ourselves because we've always been very narrow, like, oh, that patient is just not quite appropriate because of this, that, and the other. How can we not have to admit this patient at 9 p.m. on a Friday?
Yes.
And we've had to completely change that to be, how do we get to yes? And we talk about that a lot now. So how do we get to yes on this referral? How do we get to yes on this staffing issue? How do we get to, so what is our path forward?
Right.
And it's a different mindset completely. I mean, it changes everything.
We've really sort of taken that focus of work-life balance and said, okay, if we can give you the work-life balance, can you put that 110% into the hours that you give us, and just really kind of focus on caring for our staff as people and saying, okay, we care about you like this, so we expect for you to care for the patient the same way as we care for you. And so it seems to be really working for us right now.
How do you know whether you're viewing people as people? Let me ask you a question. How do you view your significant other as a person?
Sometimes.
You mean the starter wife?
You almost view them as an extension of yourself.
However, let me give you a small example of how this can get off the tracks. Now, I have slides up here, but that's just for Seth. So one day when I came home, I asked my wife, it's very, like, everyone in my house knows my routine questions that I ask, everyone in the home. But with my wife, I'm always, what's the one thing I can do for you before the end of the night that would make all the difference in the world to you? I don't ask for what all needs to happen, because I can't do that, but I know I can do one thing. If my daughter can tell me one thing, I know I can do that. It allows me to focus, which is another thing when you're looking at all the takeaways from this conference. I think we can get inundated with too many one things to where we don't really implement and fully measure whether it was a successful implementation or not. So get your current status, implement. This time next year when we ask the same question, we're like, hey, I did this and this is what the result was. And then we become a more intelligent group of people as everyone's trying something different or new, and we're getting that feedback every year saying this is working, this isn't working. We're hoping to be able to try a few things as well that we can come back and say, hey, this works. But so I asked my wife, what's one thing I can do for you before the end of the day to make the difference? She goes, well, I have a meeting tonight. If you could just cook dinner for the kids, there's chicken in the fridge. I'm like, perfect. Well, when I asked my daughter Lainey what's the one thing I could do for her, she said, can I read these books to you? Because she was just learned how to read. So we got on the couch and she started reading bedtime stories to Dad. And I fell asleep. About the 11th book in, I fell asleep. And I woke up, and every Tuesday and Thursday night, I would go play basketball. And so this particular day, I was really looking forward to playing basketball. And I woke up, and it was 9:15. So I jump up, get my clothes on, and I grab my bag, and as I'm going through the kitchen, I realize I haven't fed the kids. Right? And I really need to go play basketball. Matter of fact, it's better for me as a father to go play basketball because it's the way I decompress, and then I just become a better human being. So what would Jesus do? I think he would go play basketball right now because I'm such a better person when I go do this activity. But I have a little guilt, right? Because I know that I need to be cooking. So I have to create a narrative that justifies my new behavior that I'm about to do, so I still feel like a good person that has values, morals, and etc. And so what I have to do in order to normalize that guilt or to alleviate it, I have to make my wife into a criminal. I have to blame her, like, you know what, this is the 4th night I've had to cook for the kids. I work all day, right, and I start creating a narrative that is so positive, reflecting on me, and horribilizing my wife so that I feel better about my choice of betraying the commitment that I made to her. And I know I'm the only one doing it. This is just therapy for me, by the way. And so I get in the car, and I'm literally this committed to my to following Jesus' footsteps. And I'm driving down the road, and I get to the stop sign, and I, in a moment, catch the pattern that I just did, because my wife is the sweetest person, and I decided I had to turn right, I go play basketball, turn left, I loop around and go back to the house. I turn left after feeling bad that I have demonized my wife so that I could feel good about doing the thing that I wanted to do. So I go back to the house, set the bag down, walk into the kitchen, start going. My wife's there, and she says, "Hey, what are you doing back? You normally are playing basketball." I go, "You know what? I forgot to feed the kids." And I realized that, and I told her what I had done. I was just open and honest where my mind was at, and that I didn't want to do that. And she goes, "Oh, no, you don't. You go back and play basketball because you're a way better human being when you do that." and I go, "No, I really want to live to my commitment." She goes, "No, because what's going to happen is you don't go play basketball. Now you're going to resent me the whole time you're doing the commitment, and I don't want that." And I go, "No, I must have do this a lot." I'm thinking, like, yeah, you're the good husband. You're vacuuming and helping out the whole time. I'm pissed off. So the behaviors don't always match mindset. It doesn't always match. And although I would say that I view my wife as a person more than anybody in my life, it's amazing how often I don't. And so the question, going back to viewing people as people, is how do we know when we're actually in the right mindset to view people as people? And this goes right back to the need for us to build a machine for our business. And so business is pretty simple. This is very elementary. I'm sorry, but I think simplicity sometimes is what we need more than anything. So for you well-educated people out there, just fall asleep and just, again, this is my therapy. But business is simple. You have an individual here who has pain, right? We create a solution, and we hope that that solution makes the person happy. And then usually there's an exchange, monetary exchange for that service, right? Nick talked about how we can't create this without this. This has to be what we have to have or understand. And so we have to list, whether through empathy and sitting and actually like seeing the problem, understanding the problem, we have to know what this is. In order to know what this is, we don't just need to know the pain points, we need to know what the hopes and dreams are. Where are you trying to get? What does success look like for you? And then what's the obstacles or what are the pain points that you feel like you have that's not getting there? That's the solution that maybe we could bring to the table. It's even a solution to hear what people's problems are and brainstorm with them. If you're a hospice provider and you cannot do, you can't maybe provide that solution, just by the mere fact that you gave them the time to help them think through their problems is something that is a free service that we can all do. Because guess what, at the end of the day, what does that physician or referral partner feel when we're done? You care. They feel like a person. They feel like a person. So the best way to get to here is a couple objectives. And this is where we're going to go back to your significant other. Do you know what their hopes and dreams are? And do you know what their fears and concerns are? Hopes and dreams, fears and concerns. So it's real easy. I go to my wife and I say, what were you hoping to accomplish today? She tells me. What's the one thing that I can do before the end of the night that can make a difference in having you achieve that one thing that you were hoping to achieve? Simple. I hear the problem. Now, depending on the relationship that you have to be more relevant. So if I asked my wife 3 months ago what her hopes and dreams are, I'm probably not relevant enough. So when you think about the significant people in your life and you don't know the answers to those things, how relevant are you? And how much do they feel like a person if you don't know those things? Going through the motions, not connecting, not really asking, how is it to be a freshman walking through the halls of the high school? What do you hope? What does a great day look like? What's your fear every morning when you walk through that hallway? Those are important things to know so that you can help them accomplish the goals that they have. That is no different. That application, that approach applies to every single one of us. And it doesn't matter how much time you have, you can always view someone as a person in a different, engaging way. So I was with a bunch of my brother-in-laws. We were building a cabin in a really remote area of Alaska. And on our way to get up to Sutton, in the middle of nowhere, we stopped at a grocery store. I was talking to my brother-in-laws about this concept, and I said, let's do an activity. Right now, when we go into this grocery store, I want all of you to view every single individual in this grocery store as a person, not as an object, a vehicle, or just irrelevant because they don't really matter to us at that time, right? View them as a person. And then we're going to talk about it when we get back to the car of how we behave differently than we normally would if we were in pre-conscious thought and just on autopilot. So we got back to the car and I go, what did you see as a difference? They said, I engaged into every person in that grocery store, even if it was just an eye contact and a smile. That human connection made them feel like a person. And so when we think about what if every single one of our staff members understood this concept, and every time they walked into a facility, the staff there and the patients there, whether they were ours or not, felt human connection deeper from us than anybody else. That's adding value. That's taking what we know all humans have, this. We want to acknowledge all human beings that they have this, and we want to somehow have a result here. And sometimes it's just a smile. When we want a long-term relationship, we actually want to know the specifics of what these things are so that we can create a solution so that we can have the outcome be here. It's really as simple as that. So when we're building our machine, we want to make, so right now this is a terminally ill patient, right? And we focus a ton of time on that. But this is an employee too, right? So when we get growing real quickly and all of a sudden the wheels start falling off, it's because we haven't sat back and said, what is it like for a brand new employee to come in that does not know anything about hospice and now they have a caseload of 10? What's it like for an on-call nurse who's not experienced and all of a sudden they get a call and it's an emergency? What's that drive look like for that individual going into that patient? We're so up here in the clouds that everyone's just a vehicle to us. A vehicle to take care of the patient in the middle of the night. A vehicle so that I can do my job in my office not engaging with people. Doesn't make any sense, right? Andrew says it all the time. We're people serving people. We need to be really good at people. Like that's really what we need to be good at. That is our business. So this machine, when we think about building it, it has to be from the perspective of everybody involved. Everybody, compliance, finance, how everyone's engaged. We need to know their pain points so everyone has an individual solution box that we've created for them so the wheels don't fall off the bus when we all of a sudden grow rapidly and have these spurts. And so you want to make sure that it's very intentional. Like, what is the solution box? Like, let's design it. Let's be intentional about it. Simple is always better. I've heard from many people that, and Andrew says this a lot, and if I quote him a lot, it's because I have, in 2006, I gave him a call and I said, there's a guy from Idaho that's going to be better than you someday. That was the beginning of a long relationship with Andrew, because he loved that, and then we became, we're essentially family now. So if I, when he's here, you know, I have to make sure I give him credit for the things that I say that are really his, rip off his ideas all the time. But say a genius is one that can have pattern recognition, but that can take the complexity and make it simple. Like Nick, when he was given the 1 hour MBA, here's a smart guy that can make it as complex as possible so it's over everybody's head. Instead, his genius was he made it so simple that all of us understood it. Are the jobs of our staff that simple to where anybody can understand it? Or are we so CYA in our business that we make it so complex that they feel like they lose every single day they come to work? We have to take the things that leverage, the one thing that we can measure that impacts the whole thing. That's what we have to do in our building our machine that creates the sustainable growth that we want. We want to make sure that once we have that, can we replicate it? Can we scale it? Is it something that would work if we had, what if we had 1,000 patients? What if we had 3,000 patients? What if we had it in 6 months from now? What would that look like? Again, forcing us to create the processes, the simplicity that we could teach it. Within 28 days, have a nurse be able to take a caseload. You cannot do that if you make it a complex issue. Okay. And we have to remember, like, when we've talked about it, and we have been talking about it just with me, it's all about people. How many of you have had to put a leader in a struggling area with all the blame and excuses under the roof, and for years you went thinking that that area would really, potential, say we're in rural, so say the potential's 20, and we just kind of all think that, and they're at 14, and so we need to now take care of business because it really should be at 20. And then you get another leader, they happen to go put another leader there, and you're at 35, 40, and you're like, where'd that come from? Or we had an area in La Grande, Oregon that we could never hire staff in, ever. It was a nightmare. We're like, man, are there any nurses in La Grande, Oregon? We put a new leader there. He has a stack of people who want to work for him. It's really about the quality of people that we hire that have the ability to want to view people as people. We have to hire people that are the caliber, and we have to get that. We have to attract that talent. So again, the people that view people as people, what are their pain points, and how do we advertise for them to make them happy to stay? It's the same model. We have to know this for the people that we're trying to attract and retain. We have to know their solutions, which might come with a lot of collaboration and questions, to be able to maintain this. And then we have to create a feedback loop to make sure that we're constantly making iterations to that to make it better all the time. And really, that's the answer to all of our growth. You are the lid to your growth. Whatever your census is right now is because of you. There's no other reason other than you. Like our census, it's Chris and I's fault. More Chris's than mine, but that's why we like the co-president concept, because no. And the reason why is because if we allow a weak player on the team, that's our fault. So if I'm blaming someone in our organization for not doing their job, it's not their problem, it's my problem. It's my business. I'm the lid. So that's why these conferences are so important. That's why getting people on your side. I have utilized Mark, like he says he's at Heart and Home. I do whatever it took to get Mark into my building. Why? Because he's a genius. And he might be embarrassed by that, but and here's the quality of having good vendor relationships. is I know that Mark cares about my business way more than his service of PDC to Heart and Home. Like if I asked him of a problem that had nothing to do with pharmacy, I've done it many times, he would sit on the phone with me and work through my problems. It's pretty awesome. Andrew, I've called him with my butt cheeks clenched so tight because of a stressful situation the first time we hit cap in 2006. I had my cardboard box on my desk. I was just like, what's cap? What do you mean? How could they do this? This is criminal, right? Call Andrew, who 28 years of experience seeing thousands of hospices and knowing best practices. Who here is crazy enough not to tap into that? Are you crazy? Do you really think you're that arrogant that you can do it without having someone who's sitting right here that can help you get where you want to go? Or a Mark? You know, we have to be humble enough to know that, man, I'm going to get every bright idea and every best practice to help me get where I need to go. Because all of us have different sticking points that create our lid to be lower than what it's currently at. So networking is super important. Sonos, vendor experts that we've utilized to help us get where we need to go. And also with health, we know that the Medicare carve-in's coming in, and a lot of us can bury our heads in the sand. How much time do I have?
You've got 20 minutes.
Perfect. We talk about the Medicare carve-in, and I know I've talked to a lot of agencies. I've talked to a lot of professionals who talk with a lot of agencies, and they're not hear of anybody really moving in on this. And it will be the best climate in the world for Heart and Home. The best. Like, we're excited about it because there's going to be so many hospices that just in the night, right? That we can just go anywhere. Because people are not paying attention to what's happening, and that is going to smoke you. And what you think it is, it's not necessarily what it is. We've talked to the insurance companies. We've talked to a lot of the people who are really high up into a lot of the stuff, and I'm kind of a little bit blown away by what I initially thought it was from hearing from hospice industry experts, and then talking to the people who are on the other end of that and going, okay, they need certain KPIs in order to get a higher reimbursement for themselves, and so they're more likely to contract with the hospice that is, one, taking care of more lives. So it's going to, you might, if you're a smaller hospice, they're going to contract with you last because of just the sheer volume of lives. It's not going to be a priority for them. The bigger you are, they're going to probably more likely, unless you're a train wreck. Because they need certain quality outcomes in order for them to get the reimbursements they need to give you to have it flow through them on that contract. So if you're not creating the KPIs, you're going to be doing hospice for a huge cut than what you're currently getting reimbursed, unless you can prove the quality that you have is substantial enough to be able to get the better contract. Just things that you have to think about when you're looking at how to survive in the climate that's coming. And so this is where, if you have, how many of here have been in hospice for 10 years or more? So, okay. So in our philosophy, kind of now, this new year, we're going to test it. This time next year, hopefully we can report a huge success on our growth strategy. We feel like we have a great system. People hear about Heart and Home all over the country, thanks to a few people. And we get phone calls every week, people wanting to come see Heart and Home, do this. But our census is 350 because we're in rural Idaho and Oregon, right? And we are young, so we really want to do more than what we currently are at. So we have, oh, this is sweet. I love random acts of kindness, and that is probably the most random act of kindness ever.
Wallet. Did he take any money?
They can have the money.
Is that we have a system, we have the training facility, we know we can scale what we have, but we need to grow and be able to expand that. And so for us, acquisitions is our approach that we're going to try in order to get a larger footprint. As we are talking to these insurance companies, we're like, man, we really need to get a larger footprint in order to have the contracts that we want to be able to survive. And it's a strategy that we have. Why? Because we have the infrastructure. We've built the machine to be able to do it, or at least test it, right? To at least test it. And so that might feel like a whole entirely different world for you to look at M&A. But this quote kind of says it all, I think. Founders are tempted to play things safe for fear of failure. It's logical. Business is hard and failure is possible. Why do we want more employees, more problems, right? But think of it this way. Even when you play it safe, the odds are still against you. When you take bigger risks, the odds aren't that much worse, and the rewards are exponentially higher. As long as you are financially responsible, Nick laid it out, Andrew can help you out with that, Mark can help you out with that, right? To know if you're making a move that might put you at risk. You can be strategically bold. That's the best way to give yourself the highest likelihood of success. Like, be bold. I am one of the last speakers at Sonos. So where do you think they valued me in the speaker? Like I'm gonna, you know, I'm working up to Elizabeth level, you know? Or, you know, maybe it's the bracelet. That would be the kind of the, I don't know. Just need to be more interesting. It's the lack of hair. They, judge it. Be bold. Get out of your comfort zone. Do something extraordinary. If you have a great system that's taking care of patients in the right way, let's take over the market so that we can. The reason why we're getting hit, and we're going to get hit a lot more, is because there's a lot of bad players out there right now. Right? We all feel that. So when we think about being in your box or not being in your box, you might want to really think about, how do I really become really bold about this? I'll give you an example of this that has just been mind-blowing. Just a couple things. I've always viewed, we were so poor growing up. Chris and I got jobs on the farm or wherever we could so that we could buy Air Jordans so that no one could know how poor we were. And but we always, every Christmas, we'd have Santa knocking on the door and somebody in the community, and I'm 15 years old, super embarrassed. I'm not appreciative of what's happening at this point in time because I know that everyone must have been talking about the Stices and they're needy and they're poor, right? So my perception of money is so jacked up because of the way that we were kind of brought up and how we viewed it. So Heart and Home never had debt. We would never it was like never going to happen. And Chris, recently, we bought out our mom, who we love her to death, but she was a big lid. Every time we had a great opportunity to grow and expand, she says, and she would somehow sabotage it. She just didn't really want to extend herself at her age to do anything bigger and be the CEO. When she stepped down and we started going, we went from 264 to 350, like that, and now we're at our lid probably. I don't know, we'll see. Got to continue to learn. But in that buyout process, we learned a ton about what is really possible out there in the M&A world, and how much, if you have a good system that can scale, and you have a intentional product, you're not like every other hospice. You have a unique way of delivering this, and a financial model of self-control that allows you to do things. You can really leverage a lot to be able to continue to grow and expand in ways that you're not having to do a startup from scratch, which is great because it's cheap, but it also takes you a long time to get there. When you can take somebody that's similarly aligned, buy them, and then bring your amazing, unique culture to them, your training, your excitement about what you do and your passion, you can turn those people to be like, hey, we got owners now that are way more passionate about hospice and connected to what we do. They have solutions for me as an employee, as a high performer, right? Like, don't restrict yourself, because we were shocked about how much money is really out there to really do some great things, because we have built the machine to do that. That we had no idea what we had until we started going down that road. Any questions? Kind of covered a little bit or a lot. I don't know. It was a little bit random. But I wanted it to kind of be random because I want you all to take away something. Maybe one thing really kind of spoke to you more than another. But any questions? Perfect.
Todd, it was exceptional.
Yeah.
It wasn't random. That was beautifully done.